Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Are you ready for hyperinflation? Are you ready to be a trillionaire? That's right. Welcome to hyperinflation. Not quite yet, but it's probably just around the corner. This is something that, I've been talking about this for a long time, and there have been others that's been talking about it for decades, warning people that our monetary policy, how we run our economy in this nation is, well, it's stupid. You can only create so much money out of thin air and go into so much debt till it finally you have to pay the piper at some point and realize that you're based on a complete fiat system that is worthless. And look at what Ron Paul's been saying for the last 3 decades or so. He's been beating that drum for a long time. So you might say, well, why now? Like, why if supposedly we've been near hyperinflation and economic crash for 3 or 4 decades, then why should we be worried right now? Well, it's getting worse, and it's getting worse a lot faster than it has been over the last several years. And a lot of you know this, right? You already know this. You've been talking about it. You're trying to wake up your friends and your family and your neighbors and your coworkers. And well, many of them are like everyone else in this country. They're still asleep. They're just whatever the news tells us, whatever, as long as I can still watch my TV and my football and, drink my beer and, whatever. It's, just trust the government. They know what they're doing. Those guys get paid more and they're smarter than me. So, if they say it's okay, well, then I guess it's okay, right? Well, they're wrong, or they're definitely misleading you. Just the stuff that's happened over the past week since the new administration took the White House. If you can look at the economy over the past year, and then just see what has happened in just, really less than a week's time and expect this to probably continue, how in the world can anyone, rationally look at this and say, oh, everything's fine? It's not fine. And this is why we need to be getting prepared. And if you're not, well, I don't know what to tell you, folks. Because myself and many others like me have been trying to warn people that this is happening, and it's happening right before our eyes. And don't be part of the the sheep train, because that's where everyone else is at. Just think about it. Over the past year, we've had the economy shut down in a lot of parts of the country. We've lost millions of jobs. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of businesses have completely shut down, permanently gone. Just this past week, in the last few days, there's been many more businesses, big businesses, announced that they're closing down for business. They're selling off. They're selling off their stock, selling their business, shutting down, going to bankruptcy. And then the countless little mom and pop stores all across the country that's closed their doors permanently. The amount of people that are on unemployment, there's well over 10 million people in the United States, and that's, I feel, probably a very conservative figure, that are unemployed. Look at our debt to GDP ratio. It's completely backwards, okay? We have way more debt than we have income coming in. We're standing at almost $30 trillion in debt in this nation, and it's growing rapidly. And then all that's happened, this is just in the past year, the amount of spending, the amount of free money that we've been sending out. And then we're going to shut down basically our entire oil industry. The domestic oil industry is, for the most part, has been pretty much shut down. The brakes have been, put on, and thousands and thousands of people are going to be losing their jobs because of that. We're going to see oil prices, gas prices skyrocket. It's going to happen. One of the reasons why we have had some pretty decent gas prices over the last few years is because we've started producing our own oil and got off of the, you know, the Middle Eastern oil that had been using for so long, and importing other. In fact, we were exporting it. So it helped increase or lower the gas prices here domestically, and increase jobs and productivity. And I know there's a lot of people that, well, you know, oil is just not environmentally sound. Well, pretty much all the other stuff isn't either. If you look at what it takes to mine lithium and copper for windmills and make solar panels and all that kind of stuff, it's not any better. And we're certainly not to a place technologically that we can just completely stop using oil, crude oil and gasoline, you know, products from crude oil. So wouldn't it be smarter to use what we have as opposed to being dependent upon nations that typically we're not very friendly with? You'd think. Then look at the border. Oh, let's just, you know, open the border, let everybody come in, and all those people here that are here illegally, we're going to, you know, create a path for citizenship for them. That's going to help the economy too, isn't it? It's almost like this administration is doing everything they can to destroy our economy. And while that may sound like a very biased point of view, I think it fits perfectly within the plan for the Great Reset. We're going to build back better. Well, to build back better, they've got to destroy what exists, right? Just look at the Federal Reserve. I don't know how many of you have noticed this, but since March of last year, which is around the time that this health crisis started, the monetary fund, or the M2 cash flow for the Federal Reserve, if you look at that little spike that goes straight up. Yeah, that was March of last year, and it's continuing to add billions and billions, trillions of dollars. What that means is they're just creating more money out of thin air. That's right. And since Biden took office, the last I checked, it was about $400 billion has been created out of thin air by the Federal Reserve. This is not good, folks. At some point, this is all going to come crashing down. This isn't a doomsday prediction. It's just the reality. And it's not just an extremist view from some crazy nut guy like me on YouTube. Folks like Peter Schiff, just the other day I saw an interview with him, a very recent one, and he said it looks to him like it's going to be way worse than he thought it was going to be, the economy crashing. Tucker Carlson, I believe in one of his latest shows, said that, in fact, inflation is coming. He believes it. Inflation is in fact coming. Probably one of the few things that's been good in the way of preventing inflation is the deflationary actions of technology. And it's possible that between the technology being deflationary has kind of helped balance it. But it's not going to last forever, folks. You can't just keep spending money, trillions of dollars more in stimulus packages that are being planned. More shutdowns in some areas. I know there's been certain states and stuff that's opened them back up, but that's not what the president wants. More restrictions, and shutting down certain parts of the economy, basically our oil industry. This is all going to come to a head at some point. You can't just keep manipulating this economy this much over and over again and expect it's just going to continue to ride itself out. It's like this big bubble, okay? Or take a balloon. Take a balloon and fill it with water and poke a little hole in it. It'll start leaking water, and you put a piece of tape on it. And you poke another hole in it, and you put a piece of tape on it, and keep doing that and keep doing that. Eventually, that balloon is going to lose strength, and the tape is no longer going to hold it together. And that's what we're seeing. They keep putting a little Band-Aid on this economy, and it is going to come crashing down. And if you haven't been paying attention to this, folks, and I know many of you have, but for those of you that haven't, you need to be. Of all the many things that's going on right now with attack on personal liberty, attacks on freedom of speech, attack on the Second Amendment, attack on just the moral fabric of this nation, things that have just always been, and we've always accepted those as truth. Basically the simple truth of, that there's two genders. It's all under attack right now. And it's not going to get any better for a while. I know that sounds like I'm some kind of doomsdayer, and it sounds quite negative, but unfortunately, that's just the truth. And along with that is this economy and the inflating dollar. They're kind of separate, and they're kind of one and the same. I know some of you are saying, well, look at the stock market. The stock market's been increasing. I mean, we had, 120, 150 days of record day highs with the stock market last year? I mean, look at all the money people are making. The stock market's for the rich people. I know there's a lot of you that play with the stock market, and a lot of you make money in the stock market. But the real money, the big money, it's all in the wealthy people. And, what they're doing, just like with creating more money, is they're trying the best they can to squeeze as much money out of this economy as they can before they see it crashing. Look here, this is the top 10 richest people in the United States. Okay, they increased their wealth this past year by $500 billion. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He went from like 20-some billion dollars to nearly $200 billion in 1 year. In 1 year, his wealth increased that much. Did your wealth increase by that much, even that percentage of much? I mean, did your wealth this past year double, triple, quadruple? Probably not. So how is it that these guys are making this kind of money and increasing their wealth this much? Because they're squeezing every little drop of blood they can out of this economy before it all comes crashing down. They know what's going on. They know what's happening. That's why people like Bill Gates and pretty much all of them have been buying up large amounts of land. They're putting their money into hard assets that even when the economy crashes and the dollar fails, they'll still have wealth. And so this is, you and I need to be looking at these things also, and we need to be figuring out how we can secure ourselves as best we can when this dollar starts to inflate and starts to inflate hyperly. We've been under inflation for a long time, but hyperinflation is different. Some of you are familiar with the history of hyperinflation, looking at different nations that's gone through it to where their dollar, that it took trillions of their dollars to equate one American dollar. It happened in Germany. It happened in Turkey. It's happened in Venezuela and many other countries. And we're very naive if we think that it could not happen here in the United States. If we think that our economy and our dollar is so strong that it's just not going to happen. And the reality is the elites, the ones in charge, they want it to happen because they want to unveil this new digital currency. And they really want it to be a digital global currency. And the only way that they can do that, really, to make it stick, to make it a true global currency, is to get rid of the US dollar. Because the US dollar is the global reserve currency. And they're never going to have a global currency that's that effective and that accepted globally as long as the US dollar exists. And so, whether it's a conspiracy or not, it looks like that a lot of the actions that are being taken is to destroy our currency. And when that happens, it's going to be pretty chaotic. Very chaotic. Again, do a little research in history of what's happened in nations when their currency hyperinflated, what it meant to those people and how it affected them. It was an apocalyptic SHTF for those people. And you need to start being prepared for this. There's some simple things you can do, things that I talk about in nearly every video. I know I'm a repeating record. Food, water, medical, and like I've said in the last couple of videos, start thinking when you get beyond that and you're trying to think, okay, what else do I need? What else should I be stocking up on? What else should I be preparing? How should I be prepping? Start thinking as if where you live, your little island of land, your little home, your little homestead, what would you need if you were completely cut off from the rest of the planet? If you were so isolated that you could not resupply, you had nothing outside of your little kingdom that you own. That's what you need to be prepping for. Is that going to happen? No, not necessarily. But if you start creating a prepping plan based on that mindset, and you start thinking about, oh, wow, I didn't think of that. I probably should stock up on some of those, or I probably need to have that kind of tool, or I probably need to develop that kind of skill, because it may come to a point that I can't get those things, or I can't find someone to do those things, or the money that I have is so worthless that I cannot, purchase it or hire someone. This is the world that we could be facing, and we could be facing it pretty soon. I've been kind of keeping up on this with several people online, economists that are, they're not just extremists. They're not just, kind of crazy tinfoil hat wearing prepper type people. These are legitimate, well-respected economists that feel that if we have 6 months left before a huge crash, we'll be doing really good if we can last another 6 months. I'm not saying that it will be that long or less. I mean, it could be another year or two. We don't know. But the fact is that I cannot see any other way of getting out of this. With the ridiculous policies that are in place already, and the ones that they're talking about, enacting, it's lunacy. It really is. It always boggles my mind how people can think that socialism and the economy behind socialism can be effective, that it can actually stand, that it can actually last, that it can actually be beneficial. I understand how the elites think because it gives them power, control, money, but the average person, it really kind of puzzles me how the average person has that lack of understanding of economics to think that this is actually going to be good for us. I've had people tell me lately on the comments that I'm sounding more and more like a doomsdayer, and I don't want to sound that way. I want to give you a good dose of reality and be honest with you, but also encourage you to do everything you can right now to start getting your life prepared, because it's absolutely insanity what they're doing to this nation and how it's going to affect this economy. I mean, it's almost like this economy was already hanging by a little thread, and we're just going to beat it some more. And at some point, that little thread's going to break, and you're going to be pushing wheelbarrows full of cash just to go buy a loaf of bread. And you may laugh, but it has happened in history. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.